What is up, guys? Let's take a look at structs in Rust in order to structure some data. First and foremost, a struct, which you probably have heard this term in other programming languages before, but if you haven't, it is a structure. Struct is short for the word structure. That's structure, and it's basically just a custom data type that lets you kind of put together and name multiple values that might be related, and when structured together, kind of make up one meaningful group. And for my object-oriented programming language people out there, a struct is basically like an object's data attributes. So if you have a, let's say, dog object, and the data attributes of that dog would be breed, the color, the weight. You can think of that as basically the same thing as a struct or similar to it. And you're primarily going to want to use these in order to structure or create specific types of data. So let's take a look at an example of how to first define and also to instantiate these structs. So in order to define a struct, you need the magic keyword. And that magic keyword just so happens to be struct. So you guys can see struct the keyword, and then you want to actually name the structure that you're creating. And by the way, this name is going to be the name for the entire structure itself, not the different components in the structure. So to compare that back to object-oriented programming languages, the dog object example I gave earlier, so basically this would be the dog. This name should always describe the significance of the pieces of all the data being grouped together. And if we want to group a dog, we're going to call it dog. So then you give it the name, and I'll say capital D O G, because when you're defining a struct, it's
common courtesy
to give it a capitalized variable name. And then you need an open close curly braces. So inside of the struct, in between open and close curly braces, this, my friends, this is where we're going to define the names and the types of each of the pieces of data for that struct. And we call these pieces of data the fields. So for example, if I'm making my dog, I can make a first field and we can call that breed, B-R-E-E-D. After the name of the field, you just want your colon. Then after the colon, on the right-hand side of the name, you're going to put the type. And in this case, we could just make the breed as a string. What else would make up a dog? I guess a color. So we can say color. It's also probably going to be a string, maybe weight, and weight would be, let's just say, unsigned 64-bit integer. Aha. And then yes, how about a name? Name can also be a string. And after, in order to go ahead and use the structure that we defined, we have to then create an instance of that structure. And in that instance, we can go ahead and specify specific concrete values for each one of these fields in the structure. But actually, first, let me take out this from the main function. All right, guys, real quick, I'm just moving this from the main function outside of the main, but just so you guys know, I made a syntax error on line 4 right there. That should be a comma, so apologies we're making for that. A new variable, we're calling it dog1, and we're going to set it equal to the name of our dog structure. So like if you were used to doing something like this in Java, where you would go inside the main class and you'd go ahead and instantiate a new instance of an object of a different class. I mean, this kind of looks pretty similar, right? From there, open, close the curly braces, and then inside we'll fill out each of these fields. So the breed, we'll say it is a string, : from, use the good string, German short hair pointer, comma, go to the next field. What is the next field? Color. So color is also string. We'll say color, : string, : from, black and white, comma, go to the next one, weight. So we'll say weight 75, comma, last but not least, name. We're also making another string. So we'll say light, comma, and then after the end of the closing curly brace, we're going to put a semicolon, and boom. Now we just made an instance of our dog structure named dog1. And as you can see, dog1 has specific data for each one of these fields in here. So what if we just wanted to grab one of these values and do something to them? Well, we could just use dot notation to do that. So for example, if I wanted to adjust the name, I could say dog1 dot name, and maybe we'll change that to be equal to Coda. But if you guys remember, this actually is not going to work unless the entire instance that we're creating is mutable. So we'll throw that mut keyword up there, and then that would actually allow it to work. Line 17. It's important to know here that the entire instance itself needs to be mutable, okay? We can't just like make one of these certain fields mutable, and that's because Rust doesn't allow us to just mark only certain of these fields as mutable. Also, kind of like with any expression, we can construct a new instance of the struct itself as the last expression in the function body. That way we can implicitly return that as a new instance. So for example, if I wanted to make a function out here called build build dog, and maybe you just want to be able to pass the name and the breed in to the dog to build it. I could say breed :string, comma, name :string, arrow, turn, dog. And then inside there, we would go ahead and define said dog. So dog, breed, just like the last time. Don't forget the commas. You know, if you want to, you can even keep values specific already inside of here. So for example, if we call this function build dog, we're only passing in a breed and a name. Well, we had to do something to color and weight, right? So instead of making that a string, we could just say color is always going to be brown, and the weight, we could just make it always like 1, whatever, anything arbitrary. Something also to note, it should make most sense to just keep the name of the function parameters with the same exact name as the fields in the structure that you're going to be using them for. It just makes sense. TN. That's just a quick dirty breakdown of structs and Rust. There's a little bit more that you can do with them, but hopefully this will allow you to have a better understanding of what they are and how to use them. Hope that was helpful. Smash the like if you liked it, or the dislike if you didn't like it. Developerdirection.com. I'm out. See ya.